in behind there you've got the rump.
Okay.
This is going actually into the hind quarter section, but we're just running along the top end of the animal here. Rump steak, ours is terribly tender. I'm very, very proud of our rump.
And I can personally attribute to that one being tender.
I like to cut my steaks thick, so you've got a proper thick steak. My customers are able to approach me and ask for extra thick, extra thin, however people want their meat cut. They can approach me. I stand beside the butcher and I even will pick the knife up and move it on the carcass. No, I don't want it that thin, I don't want it that thick. And he's fine. He works with me so wonderfully, wonderfully well. Yeah. So anything the customer wants is possible. Then we've got the top side. Wonderful, wonderful roasting pieces off the top side.
Yeah.
The silver side is down the back of the leg. The Jarrell, which is the eye fillet out of the silver side, that's a wonderful, wonderful piece of meat, terribly tender. We present that at our Meat the Beef days, and we've cooked it at 70 degrees for 3.5 hours.
Wow.
It doesn't have a big beef flavour, it's just a really,
it's a very fine grained muscle.
Yeah.
The advantage of the slow, that ultra slow cook, it would only be about that round, roughly, and a longish round muscle, but it's quite even in its length. It doesn't sort of taper off as so many muscles do. And the first time we ever cooked it that way, we did it for a business dinner in Tumut, and it was served just as a little hors d'oeuvre type wrap, and most people thought it was lamb.
Yeah.
Everybody has thought it was lamb.
Oh wow.
It has very fine texture, but that slow cook, it has the same colour. It gives an evenness of colour right across the piece of meat. It comes out salmon pink.
Yeah.
But right from edge to edge, there's no grey and then gradation to pink and then going back to grey again. It's grey on the outside, just the very outside edge, of course.
Yeah.
And you can marinate. You can do a crust on it with pepper or whatever you like. Pepper is about all we use. Maybe a bit of garlic. But as a standalone, and then we just super thin slice it through. We actually use the local IGA's ham slicer to run it through. And it's a very tender piece of meat, so long as it's treated with respect. I mean, they're a beef animal. If you cook a piece of meat the wrong way, it'll be horrible. But and that's the other advantage with selling the way we do, direct to the customer. They can ask anything.
I've passed that along.
Cooking techniques. Is this a slow cook? What's the best way of cooking this?
Yeah.
And we're playing around with different cuts like that, like the gorilla, like the slow cook.
Yeah.
You play around with different things like that, and don't be afraid of trying something if it doesn't work.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and I pass along that cooking technique to people who buy the whole Jarrell, and they're back the next week going, "Oh, that was wonderful."
Yes, most definitely. So that's even a new one for us. So I think I might have to go home and actually try that one.
Yes. Yeah, we've lost the art of slow cooking to a large degree.
Yes, very much so.
A lot of people have been put off a lot of cuts because of that. In Australia, it's about 60-65% of the animal, of the meat, we try and use as steaks or as roasting pieces.
Oh, okay.
The rest goes into grinding beef, which is either diced or minced or sausages. In America, it's the other way around. It's like 25% of the beef is treated as steak, and the rest is all grinding beef.
Oh, wow. That's such a waste.
Well, it's not wasted. It's still used. But they're not pretending to try and create a wonderful cut out of something that shouldn't. But, again, if they're trying to cook it quickly, then you're wasting your time trying to cook something like a gorilla quickly. You can't treat it as a normal steak. Yeah, but if you change your approach and just take a bit more time over the cooking process, then and cooking things on the bone gives you much more flavour. Yeah. But all of the four-quarter cuts that Manda was talking about a few minutes ago, if you just treat them with a bit more respect, slightly different techniques. Yeah. Like the claymore steak, for instance, that that comes off the blade. it's a steak that can be that thick, but the muscles run along it. Now, if you were to just treat it like a steak and put it on a plate, it would be like boot leather. But the point is, you treat it like a steak, you hit it with a hot pan, and then you slice it to serve it, you slice it across.
Yeah.
So that then once you're eating it, you're actually cutting along the grain again, across the grain. And it's wonderfully, it's a beautifully flavoured piece of meat. There's much more flavour off those four-quarter cuts.
Yeah.
But they're not widely known. And that's another thing, another advantage with selling Brit. You can sort of promote some of the other cuts. And they call them primary and secondary cuts, and that's a shame because to us the better flavour is in some of what is known as secondary cuts, and we hate that term.
Yeah.
They're more flavourful.
And another point of what you were saying with the silver side before is that the public have only really ever seen corn silver side.
Correct.
Yet you can have a silver side pot roast. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. It can your fresh silver side straight off the carcass, not corned, can be a pot roast. It can also be an oven roast. So,
and that's part of this part here, isn't it?
It's down the back of the leg, yes.
Okay.
Then we go into the round. Oh, and we do corn silver side. I ask the butcher to corn our silver side, and I always leave it in solution for an extra couple of weeks so it has more flavour. And that's one of the things I can do. Because, again, we're not trying to pump things out quickly.
We're doing it
properly, yes, yes. The round is basically the front of the thigh. You can use round steak for your slow cooking, your casseroles and such. I also, I'll get him to cut up some thick slices and then dice it for me, so I've got a nice, very lean diced meat that people can use without having to do much preparation. And I also get it cut nice and thin as a minute steak.
Oh, okay.
So lovely for breakfast with eggs. Then we have, we talked about the eye fillet, also called the tenderloin. My customers can request to get a whole eye fillet, or just the butt end of it, or they can have it sliced. I always present it sliced at the markets unless someone asks for something different.
For a whole eye fillet, can you roast that as a whole?
You could, yes, most certainly.
I would imagine you would have to do it at a lower heat for
I would always recommend that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you don't want to ruin that with a fast cook. The brisket, which runs along the rib cage of the animal, I do some wonderful slow braises with brisket. That's become very popular. I think possibly Jamie Oliver's helped that along.
I don't know, but I've found through the brisket braised, I can pop that into the slow cooker or have it bubbling on the stove for most of the day. And somebody quite likes braised steak standing behind the camera there.
Not mentioning any names. The leg, both the front and the back leg, we can take gravy beef from there. That's got a lot of flavour, the gravy beef. We are guilty of presenting whole beef shanks at the markets.
Okay.
And that does come with a couple of wonderful recipes.
Most definitely.
And more traditionally is rosso bucco, which is your sliced leg shank.
Of it.
So one shank will feed comfortably 4 to 6 people.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a very dramatic cook when it's a slow cook, 3 or 4 hours. You can use a traditional osso bucco type recipe with it.
Yeah.
One of the more unusual things we do with it is braised coconut milk with some Asian flavours.
You were saying that last night, and that I haven't heard of before in braising it.
It's a different flavour. It's a beautiful flavour. It's something quite unexpected. When we first did it, this is going to be interesting, but it works. It works brilliantly.
Yeah.
And if you tie the shin or the hock are made up of various muscle groups running along the bone.
Yeah.
So if you tie them together just with some baking, intertwine.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the cook, you can stand it up, and you've got this nice big bone standing up, cut the ties away, and then each little muscle group will come off on its own.
Yeah.
It's a dramatic way of presenting a dish as well.
I mean, no, it definitely is, and you'll find that Manda and Ian have kindly donated that recipe, so you'll find it later on into the website. So thank you very much for that one.
Our pleasure.
And thank you very much for your time explaining the different cuts of meat to bake.